Hi, and welcome back to another AnyRPG Development Livestream. In these videos, I livestream the development of the AnyRPG Engine, a 100% free and open source role-playing game engine designed in Unity and written in C#. These videos are unscripted and give you a chance to take a behind-the-scenes look at the methodical, non-glamorous side of software development. For more information on AnyRPG, be sure to check out AnyRPG.org, where you can find documentation on the engine, links to the full source code at the GitHub repository, and downloadable versions of AnyRPG Alpha, a free game created to showcase the capabilities of the AnyRPG engine. If you would like to see more of this type of content in the future, be sure to like the videos, subscribe to the Cohesion YouTube channel, or just leave a message in the comments telling me what you'd like to see. In today's episode, we will be completing the task that we started in the last one, which was adding a fishing trade skill with a fishing animation and a fishing rod in our hands while we're fishing. This will also allow us to add things like potions in our hand when we're drinking potions, or axes and pickaxes in our hand when we're chopping down trees and mining. The free assets we'll be using today are all from the asset store. The huge FBX mocap library contains the fishing animations. The potions pack contains our 3D potion models. The stylized 3D tools pack has the hatchet and the pickaxe. The Middle Age Medieval Action Sound Effects pack has a sword clang, which actually sounds just like a pickaxe clang, so we'll be using that. The Free Sound Effects pack has a sound effect that sounds almost like an axe hitting a tree, so we'll be using that for our chop effect, hopefully. And the Mummy Warriors have some great animations that look like chopping with axes and pickaxes, even though they're actually like sword, I think, animations, some of them. So I've already downloaded those into my project, and the first thing that we need to do is a bit of refactoring. We currently have a system right now for weapons, so let's go in and take a look at that. Looking at the rune sword in here, we have a physical prefab, a physical position, rotation, scale, and target bone for attaching this item to. This functionality right here is going to be needed by multiple things. So what we need to do is we actually need to remove this from the weapon and put it into some kind of common system for making physical prefabs appear on a character. So scriptable objects definitely seems like the way to go, because we've already got a system to load this type of scriptable object information. And so let's go into our weapon here. And we'll need a new type of scriptable object. So that's a resource. And we are going to call this a holdable object. And we'll also need some other functionality in here as well. We'll need not just basically a hold position, but like a sheathed position as well. Because in order to hold a fishing rod in our hand, we need to take our staff out of our hand and put it somewhere. And so although I'm not really going to do like equipping and unequipping animations as part of this, we'll add that later. We will need the ability to have our weapons go to different places on our body. So we'll go here into item. Wait, no, we actually want to go into the scripts and create a new type of object there. So we have items here, and this actually looks pretty good because our item is a scriptable object. So we're just going to copy. Actually, you know what else is a scriptable object? Our weapon. And where, if we go back in and actually we look at the rune sword, one of our base classes here is the one that actually has the stuff we need in it. So I think it's actually equipment. Yeah, this is the one we need. Perfect. So we will copy equipment. And we can make equipment into holdable object. And holdable object doesn't have to inherit really from anything, I don't think. Except for, wait a minute, we might need to inherit from scriptable object. I think we do. Actually, let me just confirm that. Describable resource. Yeah, okay, so we need to inherit actually from scriptable object. So we can inherit from scriptable object, and we don't really need this because we're just dealing with prefabs. This will have nothing to do with UMA. And we basically just need the prefab, the position, rotation, scale, and target bone. That's pretty much it, because the only thing that this class is going to deal with is what an item is and where it goes. So we're also going to need, I'm going to call it a sheathed physical position. And so this is where the weapon's going to go when you're not holding it in your hand, because you're going to need a different position and rotation for these. And we'll also need a sheathed physical rotation. And a sheathed physical scale. As well as a sheathed target bone, because we're going to be attaching this like basically to the player's spine or his hip or something like that. We can get rid of these. And then, in the interest of keeping our naming structure the same, we're just going to put that in front of all of our public methods, or I mean properties here, and just create those new ones. And then now we have a way to track where this thing goes. And since this is going to be basically a base class, which we probably won't ever need to override, but yeah, you know what, we don't, this thing never, it's not a mono behavior, so it can't run methods. Okay, so I mean basically this is just like a fancy struct right now. And that looks good, I think. Let's just try that. Okay, and I'm just going to open up a console here. And it looks good, no error messages from that. So then we have a basically like a resource manager. And since these things are going to be coming as holdable objects, we need to have them in accessed by a resource manager basically. So this is where our resource managers live, and we can basically just copy the system item manager. It's probably the closest thing. And this is going to be renamed the system holdable object manager. And the reason we're doing this is because we want a factory for all our scriptable objects so that at some point in the future we can put them in a database if we want. So we need basically a common way to access them that's going to abstract that for us, and also control instantiation of these objects as well. So we'll call this the system holdable object manager. Basically, let's see, we just need to replace instances of item here with holdable object. Okay, so now we have a way to access all of our holdable objects. And now we just have to put this thing onto our game manager because it needs to live somewhere so that it can do what it needs to. And we put all of those on our resource managers. So we can put the system holdable object manager on here. And now it'll be automatically created and we can access it in the game. So the next thing we need to do is we actually need to make a holdable object, and we'll test our staff first because we need functionality to put our staff on our back. So I will create a new you know what, that doesn't need to go under inventory. Holdable objects aren't inventory objects, they're just holdable objects. I don't really have a category for them that I can think would be better than that. Let's just take a look. Create. Yeah, no, they're definitely their own thing. They are not any of those other things. Okay, great. Okay, yeah, that looks good. So this is going to be the, not the rune sword, the bone staff. And we can just copy those existing values from our other bone staff. So we'll just add a new inspector in here. And we'll find our other bone staff here. And then we can just copy those over. So this is our physical prefab. And I don't know, can I copy all these or do I have to do them like one at a time? Okay, one at a time it is. So we have physical position. Physical rotation. And then physical scale. You know, I might not, I probably won't end up using this sheathed physical scale here because the physical scale is only going to be used at instantiation time. When we swap the position, yeah, well, I'll leave it in there anyway. Maybe I'll just comment it out for now. So that's good. That's all the information we need about the staff other than this bit right here. And at this point, I kind of want to fix our whole bone targeting thing and use the built-in functionality of the animator to find this bone for us. And so now basically we just need to go into equipment, and we need to add the holdable object in here into the equipment. So we can unlock that and get rid of this other inspector window, because there's like some strange bug where if you have two inspector windows open, Unity starts throwing weird errors that I found. And now we can go into the base class equipment, and we can add a string, because basically we need to be able to access stuff through our factory. So we're going to call this holdable object name. With a lowercase h. Okay. That looks good. And now if we go back in and we look at the bone staff, and then we have a holdable object name. And now that encapsulates all of these fields. We're not going to remove those yet though, because we have several other weapons in the game, and we need to transfer all of this information over from all those items onto their new holdable objects. Before we start doing that, I need to get some information from the staff. And basically that information is where our staff is going to sit while it's sheathed. So to do that, we pretty much, I think, need to go in game now, because the best way to do this, UMA characters create their like bone hierarchies dynamic. Okay, just a second. We have a null reference here. System holdable object manager load resource list. Okay, let's just take a look and figure out what's going on there. Okay, of course. Yeah, okay. My holdable objects need basically to be describable resources in order to work properly with the system resource manager. So we're just going to go down to item here. Yeah, that's inheriting from describable resource, so we technically don't need holdable objects to be scriptable object. They just need to be a describable resource, because that will handle all the other inheritance for us. because at some point I decided it was just easier to access these things if they all had a name, and that name actually comes from a description on the item. And we'll see that show up here in a second. There we go. So bone staff holdable object, and although we technically don't really need that stuff, I don't remember what icon are we using for the bone staff. Let's just take a look. Sand healer staff 1. Right, okay, so we will use that as well. This realistically isn't going to show up anywhere, but it's good to just be consistent. Okay, and that should allow us to actually load the list now, because we can clear that. Good. And let's try that again. Okay, that's better. So we're going to load Wizard's Rest here because he's got a bone staff. And basically what we want to do right now is just take the bone staff and put it like on our back and just see where it looks good and like run around with it for a little bit. So we're just going to look in our scene here. We're going to find our bone staff, which is attached to our Uma character here. And we can just go into the scene and take a look at this here. And now we can move our bone staff. So what we're going to do, move it out basically to like the spine. So let's put it on spine 1. Can I move it? Oh, it is on spine 1. It's just at the bottom. Okay. And okay, let's move it over to spine. That's so odd. It's not. Maybe I just have to. No. Oh, it's just maintaining its world position. That's what's happening. Okay, so we got to keep the scale. I can just change the position. Okay, so I think we actually want it on the upper spine here. Yeah, I guess that's okay. Let's just try it maybe on the neck. I doubt we want it on the neck, but we'll just see. You know, the funny thing is that's actually exactly where I want it. Kind of. Okay, so let's rotate this thing. Pull it down like a little bit here. Maybe like about that, and we need to move it back a little bit, like to about here, and then drag it down. Now it's sort of like sitting across the back, and then we can rotate it a little bit. Maybe rotate a little bit more. Sort of that way. Yeah, there we go. Okay. That's actually looking pretty good, but let's see. Actually, let's just see what it looks like when he starts running around. So, yeah, it's kind of attached to his head. Maybe we will move it down this onto the spine one. Let's take a look at, actually, where is that neck bone anyway? If I look at the neck bones transform, okay, well, let's just move it down on a spine one here and then see where's spine one's transform. Yeah, that's like totally way more where we want it. So we'll just move the staff, whoops, over the staff here. And we'll change it to the global coordinate system so we can just basically drag it sort of straight down. Yeah, that's a little better. And then I want to rotate it back a little bit like this so it's sitting sort of more flat. And then move it inwards a little bit so it's like it's in between his shoulder blades here. And that's pretty good. Maybe just another rotation this way, so it's, yeah, there we go. You know what? I think that's pretty good. Yeah, there we go. Now when I run, the staff is rotating around that spine bone properly, and honestly, like, it looks it looks kind of funny actually. It's like he's got a double head. The spine's like staring at him. It's like he killed the skeleton, and the spine's like, "Hey, buddy, I'm watching you now." All right. So that looks good, and I'm pretty happy with that, except for the fact the staff is like just staring at him all creepily here. Um, you know what? Let's rotate that a little bit. We want to sort of rotate it on on the local axis around this, no, around the yellow one. Yeah, there we go. Okay, that's better. You know what? The staff can stare backwards when it's on him. There we go. No, we won't have that problem. Let's try that. It can stare at whoever's behind him. Yeah, that's better, because otherwise it just looks hilarious. It looks like he's got a double head if the thing is sitting forward. Okay, awesome. So this is exactly where we want the staff sitting when it's attached to our player. So now what we're going to do is we're basically just going to take all these coordinates here. We're going to lock the inspector here. We're going to add another inspector window here. We're going to get the bone staff holdable object, and now we're just going to pass in the position into sheathed physical position. And we're going to pass in all those values right here. And then we're going to put the rotation into sheathed physical rotation. We're not going to do scale because scale is already 0.25 basically. We don't need to change that, at least not yet, not on this object. Maybe there's some other object that's huge in your hand but really small when it's sheathed, but I don't have any need for that yet. So this is okay, and we are parented to spine 1. Okay, so that's good. This is basically everything that we need to do for this particular scriptable object. And now we should actually be able to test with this because we have everything we need almost. So let's see if we can now programmatically shift our staff on and off of our back. So first we're just going to save this because we just saved a scriptable object. And now we need a way to shift objects on and off of our back. So what we'll do here, let's see, the best way to do this is going to be, we'll look at the existing equipment code, and this physical rotation field right here is referenced only here, and we'll find the code. I think it's the equipment manager, which is going to give us where we're basically equipping our items. So let's go find all references, and this is where we equip our weapons. So now what we need to do is, let's just test for a second. First thing we're going to do is just comment this stuff out right here, and instead of putting it basically in our hand position, we're going to put it in our sheathed position. So we can take this, copy that code, and change this to no, you know what? We have to grab that from the items prefab. So what we actually want to do here is we're not going to grab this physical prefab directly anymore. We're going to do a check here first. If new item dot, and we called this thing again the my holdable object name equals null, or new item dot my holdable object name is string dot empty. Then we're just gonna return basically, and we'll just throw a debug in there for now just in case this happens to us. Just let us know it's empty. So if we do have that, then what we need to do is actually get a reference to it. So holdable object equals system holdable object manager and we're just going to get the new item. Oops, what are we doing here? New item dot my holdable object name. Okay, so that'll get us a reference from our factory basically, and now we can just check this stuff against the holdable object. So if we couldn't get it, we're actually going to need to do the same thing here. So if holdable object is null and we couldn't get a reference to it, we also need to return out of here and just give a debug message as well. Okay, good. So now we can refer to that, knowing safely that it's not null, and replace all instances basically of new item with this reference to the holdable object. No, never mind. Replace some references. Yeah, good. Okay, I only replaced the ones that I needed to so far. Okay, that's good, because we need to keep some of them the same. So the target bones were the correct ones, and the physical prefab is the correct one. But the equip slot definitely comes from the item itself, as that's got realistically nothing to do with the bones. That's just like an internal thing. So now we can change this stuff to my sheath physical rotation and my sheathed physical scale. No. Yes. No, you know what? My physical scale, because we're ignoring the sheathed one. Perfect. So that looks okay. Yeah, that definitely looks okay. And if everything succeeds, we will hopefully spawn into the world. Wait a minute. I gotta fix the target bone too. Okay. So now in this case, we're using find, but and there's no overloads to that. We need actually like find in children, I think. Find a child by and return it. Find child by recursive. Maybe that's what we want. Extension. I think I actually need to go into the Unity manual for that and figure out if that's actually what we want. Interesting. So transform form, let's see. Find interesting, it doesn't have find child by recursive. Okay, well let's try that. See, maybe it works. And change that to my sheathed target bone. Find child by recursive. Why? I'm really curious about why we can't. I didn't spell that wrong, did I? No. So well, that's interesting. So somehow we have something in our Unity editor which does not show up on their help pages at all, which is kind of useless. I'm interested to know what exactly this method that they have not documented does. That's kind of interesting. I'm just going to run this because honestly, like now I'm curious. Now I want to see what this does. Why is this method not documented? What does it do? Why is it here? And why can't we find it on their site? So let's see if we can crash this thing. Let's save it first because you know it might crash. And we'll continue. All right, and totally didn't find anything, and the reason, no, there we go. My holdable object name is empty, right on. So I'm glad that I put that in there. And let's go back. Bone staff. Did we change the bone staff? Let's try that. That's interesting. My holdable object name is not empty on the bone staff. It's sitting right there looking totally okay. So we need this message to be a little better now. And we'll figure out which items are there. Oh, you know what? Because this this weapon slot code actually gets run for everything. What it basically does is just looks through and yeah, figures out if there's a physical prefab or not. So that's okay. Actually, that's kind of what we expect. So we'll enable this debug message, and now we sort of expect to get not the new item.target bone, but the holdable object dot my sheathed target bone. Okay, so let's try that, and now I expect to see a message about not being able to find the bone staff, and all these other guys should be like cloth robe and stuff. So let's see if that works. Oh my God. No way. It actually found its way back there. That's a little bit weird because it didn't find its way back there last time. But that's right. My holdable object name is empty on the pants, the shoulders, the robe, of course, because the hood, the boots, because none of those things have holdable objects associated with them. But our guy properly has the staff on his back now. Cool. So basically, like what this means, if you look at his stance right now, he's not really like in a relaxed stance. If we take this thing off, you can see this is sort of the relaxed stance that he should realistically be in. And so what we can do is we can actually change the out of combat stance for all of the items in the game to just be the regular out of combat stance now, because we have the ability to put these things like on our back or basically anywhere we want, sort of dynamically. The next thing that we need to do is we need to build in some sort of functionality for swapping this thing. So although it's now on our back, if we get into combat, it's just going to stay there, and we don't want that. In combat, we actually do want it to move. So I guess we can keep this code basically in the equipment manager. But essentially, we can make some code for moving these things. So what I want to do now basically is we'll make a, and I want to make these methods public. Yeah, I think I want to be able to call them from other places. So we're going to call this public void sheath sheath object. Why not? And let's do public void no, you know what? Hold object. Okay. So what we need to do basically is pass in a game object. And we basically need to pass in an associated, basically holdable object, holdable object name. So we'll take a string. And then we can basically take this holdable object name. Make sure it's not null. Make sure it's not string.empty. And then put a good message, whoops, there. And then grab it from here, holdable object name. And just change that so that our error message is actually accurate. And then we're going to take our item here, and instead of new equipment prefab, it gets to be the game object. And we have the holdable object here, so that's good. And this is the sheath one, so we're putting sheathed physical position. Okay, perfect. So now we basically are just going to copy this code right here. Exact same thing, except for without sheathed. And same set of input parameters. Okay, awesome. So now we have a way to sheath and unsheath our weapons. And so what we need to do now basically is we need to call these methods. So like right here, when we equip this, what I want to do, if you equip an item and you're in combat, that item should appear in your hands. And if you equip an item and you're out of combat, it should appear on like wherever it's supposed to sheath to. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go, we're just going to check, and because the equipment manager is like a singleton that's tied to the player at this point, we're just going to be able to basically do player manager. In the future, when NPCs can equip equipment, then we'll change this code, but for now we can just sort of cheat and basically grab the player player manager, my instance, what do we need from him again? We want to check if he's in combat. So my character combat dot in getting combat is true, then basically we just want to we'll put an else block here as well. We're gonna sheath, no, if he's in combat, we're gonna hold the object. And it's this new equipment prefab here. And it's the new item.my holdable object name that we're going to be passing in there. All right. And if he is out of combat, we're basically going to use the sheath object code to position this thing where it needs to be. So that's good. And now, like if we swap an item in or out of our hands while we're in combat or while we're out of combat, we're gonna properly put them in the right spot. And now the next thing that we need to do is basically we need to have a way to automatically do this stuff when we jump in or out of combat. So this whole sheath object and hold object, they're nice like base utility methods, but we need to have a little bit more logic. So at least like logic we're going to wrap around these for the combat stuff. So what we'll do is we'll make a new method. We'll call it public void. Oh, I don't know, something about combat. In combat weapons. Yeah, you know what? Actually, that's good. Sheath weapons. Yeah, perfect. Sheath weapons and hold weapons. Of course, that'll just keep it with the same naming scheme as we've already got there. So, hold weapons. Okay. And so now, basically, we need to check if we have something in our main hand, basically. So this is going to be in our dictionary of equipment slot and current equipment. And that equipment is going to tell us everything about our equipment. Perfect. So we're going to do this on if equipment, current equipment. Oops, what is that variable called again? It is called current equipment. Yeah, exactly. Okay, cool. So if current equipment, and we're going to pass in the main hand. So equipment slot dot main hand is not null. Then what we need to do is basically get the game object and tell our thing to hold it. So we'll do hold object. And we're going to pass in the game object. So that's current equipment physical objects for the equip slot.main hand. And then we need to pass in the holdable object name. So that is coming from the current equipment array. And that gives us back some equipment with a my holdable object name. Perfect. And then we're going to do the exact same thing for the offhand. All right. And that looks okay. So then we just need to do offhand. And then we're going to pass in the offhand's holdable object name. And that all looks okay. Okay, so now basically we should just be able to copy this block of code right here and just call sheath object. There. Great. So when we do like potions and stuff, we're going to be basically calling this code right here. So we need like some generic code that can just handle anything. I know like the equipment manager doesn't necessarily seem probably like the best place to put this code, but I can't really think of a better place to put it for now. So we'll just basically keep that here because this is what's going to allow us to move stuff basically in and out of our players' hands. So we've got this code now, and now we pretty much just need to call this when we go in or out of combat. So what we're going to do, I don't know if we don't subscribe to like drop combat and get in combat events right now, so let us go look actually at our character combat code here, and there is a point where we're setting combat to true and false, and I just want to see if we're sending out events when that happens here. So actually we're going to go to implementation as well and look up the player combat version of this. So character combat, go to implementation, and that gives us player combat. Okay, so player combat, we're subscribing to a few more things. Equipment changed messages, but we're still, let's see, are we overriding enter combat? We are. Okay, so we override enter combat. Let's see if we override drop combat. We also override drop combat. And if we look at base.drop combat, we do. Okay, cool. So we actually we send out an on drop combat event. And so let me just see where else we set this combat thing, because if we can send out an on enter combat event, then we can just subscribe our equipment manager to these events, and that'll be pretty much super easy. So let's find all references to this, and we only set that in one place. We set in combat equals false in drop combat, and we set in combat equals true in enter combat. So this is great. What this means is that we can easily subscribe to these events from the equipment manager. So we're just going to make a new event called onEnterCombat. And then go back down to enter combat. Whoops. Okay, good. And in combat equals true, and on enter combat. Great. So now what we can do is we can go back into our equipment manager, and we can put in some code right here basically to subscribe to those. So now we'll write a method called subscribe to combat events, and we will need another one called unsubscribe from combat events. And we'll need a variable to track whether or not we are subscribed to combat events. No, whoops, false. Because we don't want to accidentally subscribe to combat events twice. Because then we'll receive 2 notifications every time. So then basically we're going to pretty much run code that looks exactly like this. And we're going to call this subscribe to combat events and unsubscribe from combat events. And then we're going to do if subscribed to combat events or not start has run return. Yeah, it looks good. And then we'll set that variable to true there, and then on unsubscribe we're just going to see if we're not subscribed, then nothing to do, and if we are subscribed, then now we can do that. And then we're going to subscribe to them. Perfect. So what we want here is player manager.my instance.my my character.my character combat dot on enter combat plus equals in this case we wanted hold weapons. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing for on drop combat, and in this case we're going to add sheath weapons. And then we're just going to go into unsubscribe from combat events, and I suppose we need some null checks here. So if player manager.my instance does not equal null, and I mean, realistically, like if we're receiving an event that this stuff happened, it's because all this stuff exists. But if we ever receive this event when we're like in the middle of shutting down, we could get null references as we shut down. So not like that'll really affect much, but it's just better if we don't get them in the first place. So we'll just be performing these checks, and now we should be safe. we can take these guys in here and we can unsubscribe from these events. Okay, great. So now, theoretically, we are subscribing and unsubscribing properly to these events, meaning that the minute that we jump into combat, we should now be equipping our weapon, and when we jump out of combat, we should be unequipping our weapon. So let's just take a look and see if all that stuff compiles. Okay, great. No error messages. So cross our fingers and go test this. Okay, awesome. So I start, my staff is on my back. All I got to do is just basically go get close to a goblin. And let's see what happens here. I wander in range. He should auto aggro me. Yeah, no, no, yes. Oh, maybe it was because like he was already in combat with them. It's kind of weird. Okay, let's there might actually, this might not be working. We'll go figure that out though. Oh, okay. We have no reference here. Let's figure out what's happening there. Okay, good. So our code got triggered. That's good. We got pulled into combat with somebody. I see here. Okay, right. These aren't auto-created at the start, so what we actually need to do here is if current equipment dot contains key, and we actually need to do that. Okay, and same thing over here for the offhand, basically, and we'll change that to offhand. Okay, awesome. So now, if that fails, the second part of the condition won't be executed, and we will hopefully not crash this time. And this is why I love playing with error pause on, because you're just going to be told immediately if you have done something wrong, rather than maybe having it scroll by without noticing or something. Okay, great. So let's go for a run. Oh, right. I'm on his aggro table, but I'm not actually in combat. That's kind of cute. That is exactly why I didn't get knocked into combat. Okay, cool. So we'll wait for him to respawn. I think there. Okay. What just happened? Okay. We didn't change the target bone. It changed our rotation, and we completely forgot to change the target bone. So it went into the right rotation, but it did it across his back. Okay, awesome. And actually, wow, we got like another null reference error here in the sheath weapons code. Did I forget to add? Yeah, look at that. I forgot to add those safety checks in here. Okay. So we got a couple more things to fix here. Great. We got the code for the offhands. And we're going to make sure it actually has an offhand. Okay, good. And then we got to do target bones as well. So basically, we need to do this code right here. So let's do that. So in the sheath object code, we need to search for the target bone. And to do that, we need this first, which makes sense because basically this is the code. Okay, interesting. So this code right here allows us to handle equipping these weapon slots on our character panel prefab, or on our character panel, which is a different unit. So we actually let's see here. This code down here is calling sheath object directly. Actually, we should be commenting that out right here. And when we called hold object or sheath object, right, I'd already put it on the my sheath target bone. Okay. So basically, we need to pass this in somehow, because when we equip our character unit, we're going to need that. So we'll just make this basically like an optional parameter here, and we'll just pass it down the stack. Because we're not going to be calling the sheath weapons and hold weapons code anywhere other than an in combat call from the player, then when we call that code, we will always use the player manager's player object rather than the character preview panel's player object. So that should just work fine, hopefully. So let's see, player unit object, player unit object, and then we'll need the target bone. So we'll grab the target bone from the used object. So this is going to be a game object use object. Actually, you know what? I don't even think that's going to be, we can't have that null realistically. So now, yeah, okay, good. We're finding the target bone. And if the target bone's not null, let me just add this over here first. Game object used object. Okay, good. So then if the target bone's not null, we can do that stuff, and we can just basically set the parent transform.parent equals used object. It's kind of a terrible name. Let's rename that to something a little better, a little more descriptive, like search object, because this is the object we're going to be searching through. And we're going to find search object dot transform. Okay, good. So then basically we just need to do the exact same thing down here, and we'll call this search object. Then we'll go down into here, grab those, overwrite that, and then if we're holding it, we don't want the my sheath target bone, we want the my target bone. Okay. So that means now this is hopefully properly going to work on our character preview. And now what we need to do is we need to pass in the player on these. So we'll be passing in the player unit object. As the last parameter here, because these are always acting on the player unit object. These two functions cannot possibly act on anything other than the player unit object. Because we only subscribe these to the player unit objects, drop combat and enter combat methods. Perfect. So let's check that now and see if that works. And if it does, then our weapon should properly appear rotated in our hand the way we want it to. Yeah, I guess this is okay. I mean, in this code right here at the beginning, we pretty much need like a sheath target bone, or it won't run. Means it won't even instantiate the weapon at all. I think I'm okay with that. I mean, basically, we kind of need, our weapon should always be capable of being sheathed, basically. So I think I'm okay with it requiring a sheathing thing to be set up. Because otherwise what's going to happen is we're not going to be able to sheath the thing when we drink a potion or anything else, and we'll end up with like 2 items in our hands, and we don't want that. So let's try this out. We'll jump into the game. And it looks like we're okay. Okay, great. So now what's going on? Right position, wrong. That's so weird. Let's try to figure out what happened there, because he went into the wrong position. So we don't need this code anymore. And if get in combat equals true, otherwise sheath object. And so now we look at the sheath object code, and our target bone is my sheath target bone. Our position, I wonder if it, okay. I think maybe we need a debug statement here, just to see if that actually ran or like what happened there. And I think maybe what we'll do as well is actually we'll just confirm that search object isn't null. If search object is null, then we're just going to let us know that search object is null. And we'll return out. Otherwise, we're going to leave some debug messages down here to let us know what happened here. So this is going to be target bone is null. And we're just going to put the name of the target bone here. And that looks okay. Otherwise, we're just going to let it know that the target bone is not null. Okay, so let's just run that and we'll see what happened there. This will help us try to figure out why our rotation is off. Okay, let's look at our log and just see what happened there. Search object is null. Okay, great. So let's figure out why that's null. course, because we're supposed to be using used object. At least here anyway. Okay, so now that that's compiled, let's go in and see if we can get this to show the item, or the weapon, I mean, where it's supposed to be. Okay. Interesting. Now it's like down by our feet. All right, so now that's really interesting here. So we actually found the target bone. And that would be why we're supposed to be setting that transform.parent to the target bone. Okay, one more time. Okay, and now we can go in. Awesome, and we got a staff on our back. Good. And let's just open up the character panel here, and we got a staff on our back in the character panel. Awesome. So now what we want to do is try to go get ourselves aggroed and get ourselves thrown into combat and just see if this is going to work. So we'll just let this mouse kill this guy. We'll really quickly loot him so he spawns again. And let's see what happens. I'll just be the closest guy to him so he aggroes me first. Oh yeah, look at that. Look at that. I have a staff. It's in my hands. Awesome. Okay. This is exactly what I was looking for. Okay, my walk backwards animation is still, this is like my two-handed. Oh, neat. Oh, yeah, cool. Okay. And my staff is back in on my shoulder. Rad. So this part of it is working. Now, all we need to do, let's see. We have like a wood, like a tree or something anywhere maybe. Let's go find a tree, because what we need to do next basically is just add in like the ability for us through animations. Tree, perfect. So we'll just park ourselves over here, and next up we'll add the axe. And the axe doesn't need a sheath position. It will only be in our hands while we're chopping wood down. So we'll go to our holdable objects here, and actually, you know what I need? I'm not sure if I've actually even downloaded this this stylized toolkit here, so we're just going to check. I might have already imported this before. I cleaned out my Unity cache, so that's why it's giving me the download option. It'll give me that option even if I haven't, because I had like 30 gigs of Unity packages. This is going to tell me basically if I've already imported it. And stylized 3D tools. Okay, cool. So I have imported it already, it looks like part of it. Let me just go take a look at what I've imported, because it's down here under props, I think. Oops, no. Where was it again? Stylized? Stylized. Stylized 3D tools. Okay, let's see. Okay, and do I have a nice axe? Okay, awesome. This prefab is ready to use. Perfect. So, in the spirit of sticking with our naming scheme, this is going to be named AnyRPG Axe 01, and this one is going to be named AnyRPG Pickaxe 01. One of the reasons that I like to do this is because a lot of the times I'm testing a lot of stuff, so I have it like in this unused external content directory, and now that I know I'm going to use it, what I can do is pretty much every release I just search this directory here for this tag AnyRPG, and that means that I know that I can move this stuff up into the used external content and give people credit, because I test out literally, like if you see my asset store here, 771 items, and not all of those are deemed like high enough quality to make it into the final product. So it's just a nice way of tracking what's being used here. Anyway, let's take this. So now what we need to do is we need to give this axe a holdable object. So we will create a new holdable object for it. And we're going to call this the logging axe, because we'll be using it for logging. And we're going to give it the AnyRPG star axe. There's the hatchet there. And we're going to set our target bone to the hand, right hand. And it doesn't need a sheathed target bone, so that's okay. Next up, I'm going to have to go into the game, put this thing in my player's hand, and figure out what its position, rotation, and scale should be. So we'll do that now. I think I can just start the game and pop it in there. So let's see. I should be able to just play here. And my character is going to be out of combat because he's too far away from the goblins, so that's good. And then I'm going to find his right hand. I think this is my player's right hand here. Yeah, good. And now basically I can just drag this axe in here. And just put it in his hand. And then I can jump into the scene here, focus on that, and now we just have to make like a few adjustments. So wow, that is a humongous axe. You know, it's actually in a pretty good position. It's like almost perfect off the bat. We just got to shrink it down a little bit. Even maybe not even that much. Okay, so we'll take the axe and we'll make it like, I don't know, 0.75. Let's just try that. That's there, that's a little better. That sort of looks like something he can hold on to. I mean, it's still a little big, but I think it's okay. does it actually look like he's gripping it? Kind of. Okay, so we just maybe move it down like a little bit, over a little bit. Yeah, now it kind of. Let me just see his hand here. Like, his thumb looks a little wacky here. Yeah, okay, well, whatever. That's good enough. We can deal with that. It doesn't really have to be perfect. It just has to look kind of good enough. So then let's rotate it around, oh, what I think it's Z-axis. No, not that one. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Okay, so we rotated around its y-axis. Looks good for the most part. He's holding onto the handle. Okay, so let's undo this and we'll just have him sort of wander around with this. Ah, yeah, perfect. Okay. The animation he's using right now, the running animation, is still the animation where he has the staff in his hand. So that's why it looks like that. Like where he's holding it all weird like that when he's running. Okay, so that's good. Now what we want to do is we just want to lock that inspector window, go back into here, create a new inspector window, and then just go copy those values into the axe. So what do we call this? We call this the logging axe. Perfect. So we'll just set the scale, physical scale 0.75, 0.75, 0.75, and just this minor position and rotation adjustments. Okay, good. And this doesn't need like a sheath position basically, because we are not going to be using this like as an actual weapon in the game. This will be used specifically for the animation for logging. So what we need to do now that we have this here is we'll just exit out of the game, and we have to give our logging ability the ability to spawn this prefab in our character's hand. So we're going to go over now and try to do that. So we'll look for our basically our abilities here. This is going to be like right down to basically our ability base class. And it's like right up here with animation clip pretty much. Like one of the very first things in this ability. Every ability will need this, so this is going to go, yeah, right in the base class. Okay, great. So in item here, no, wait, we have holdable objects, right? So we put holdable objects in equipment, and now we need to put holdable objects into abilities. There, holdable object name. Okay. So now let's go and put that into abilities. And we need a way basically now to instantiate holdable objects. So this is where our equipment manager comes in. oops, equipment manager, that's better. So equipment manager has the capability to spawn an object. Let's see. I think for now, we're only going to allow the character to have maybe one spawnable object at a time. So we don't really need to keep track of this particular spawnable object in the same way that we keep track of the current equipment objects, but we still do need a reference to it because we need to destroy it at the end of the animation. So for that, I guess what we can do, basically, let's we'll make a game object to track that. So we need a private game object called, I don't know, spawnable object, holdable object, ability object, yeah, ability object. And we'll just make a note here, the holdable object spawn during an ability cast and removed when the cast is complete. Okay, so now we have a way to refer to that, and now we need a way to spawn that. So we'll go back down to our code here that spawns the weapon slot stuff, and let's see, we'll need a new method. So this one's going to be called public void spawn ability object and public void despawn ability object. Sure, why not? And this one's nice and easy. Basically, if ability object does not equal null, destroy ability object. Easy peasy. But for here, let's see, spawn ability object. So we will need a holdable object here. And basically our ability is just going to tell our ability manager, hey, here's a holdable object, spawn it for me, please. So our target bone here okay, actually no, we pretty much need like all this code. Most of it, pieces of it. Okay. Yeah, okay, we don't need all of it. There, so basically if the physical prefab does not equal null, we need that, and basically then we need to do the target bone, and we're only ever going to be spawning these things on the character, so We don't need to, just one second. Okay, so we got a target bone here. This is always going to be the player unit object. And we make sure that's not null, and then we're going to instantiate that on the prefab. And if the player manager's unit spawned, right, no, we don't need to track current equipment at all. And we totally don't care about whether he's in combat, so it's always going to go as held. Okay, good. So we have a holdable object here. We're going to send in the holdable object's name, and the used object is the new equipment prefab here. So that looks good, I think. Basically, we make sure that the holdable object has a physical prefab. We check the target bone for the player. If the target bone's not null, we instantiate the holdable object prefab, parent it to the target bone, set the scale, and then do the hold object, which will set its rotation properly and position. Okay. That looks good. Okay, cool. So the next thing basically that we need to do here, let me just Control K, Control F. Okay, good. Autocorrect that. And we have spawnability object and despawnability object. Okay, perfect. So now what we need to do is the character ability manager. Actually, you know what? I'm going to actually pass in the string here, the holdable object name. And I'm going to grab that because basically my ability really isn't responsible for grabbing this stuff from the factory. My ability is only responsible for telling basically the equipment manager that it's time to spawn a holdable object while we're casting this spell. So now we've got our holdable object passed in from our holdable object name. If it's null, we are going to basically just return right away. And that looks okay. And then if we do have a physical prefab and that's not null, get the target bone. Okay, perfect. So now let's go into our ability manager here. So This is the casting routine, basically. This is the thing that actually performs the cast. And this is basically what we want right here. So this cast right here starts there. Because we only want the object in our hand basically during the casting time. That's like when the actual cast bar is on the screen. So this little block right here, this little while loop, is the only thing we're really interested in. Other than, of course, the stop casting method. So there's a stop casting method that should despawn ability prefabs. I guess we can look at that later. Let's just start with spawning the ability prefab. So what we'll want to do here, this is the character ability manager, and like realistically, I'm just thinking like NPCs, when we give them the ability to cast spells, don't really need to spawn prefabs. Maybe they do actually. You know what? Yeah, let's leave it. Maybe they do. For now, the equipment manager is system-wide, but the equipment manager will become specific to the character later on. So for now, because enemies can't cast abilities, this thing's only called by our player, so we can actually hard code the equipment manager in here. So basically what we're going to do is we need to run a check here. And just make sure that the ability casting time is not 0. So if ability.myAbilityCasting casting time is greater than 0, then we're allowed, and this is where we need that myHoldable object bit here, and it's called the Holdable object name. And what we need to do, actually, we're going to make this protected, of course, because this is the base class for like everything, and everything else should be able to access this. And of course, we're going to encapsulate it and make it publicly accessible. Okay, looks good. And now we can refer to it. So if ability.my, no, you know what, we still can't refer to it, and that's basically because we just need to add that property into iAbility so that it's available in the interface. And that should be good. Once we get these in here, then we should actually be able to access that value. Perfect. And this looks okay. Now if I go back to here, now I should be able to access it. So myHoldable, perfect. Okay, equipment manager.myInstance dot what did we ask it to do again? This was spawn ability object, and we send in ability.my holdable object name. And ability.my holdable object name does not equal null, and ability.my holdable object name does not equal string.empty. Okay, good. And that looks good. So theoretically, maybe this will actually spawn an ability object. Maybe, if we're lucky. So let's see where else we're going to need to despawn the ability object. So if we make it out of this loop, we need to spawn it. And there's another place, basically stop casting. We have this stop casting, and stop casting is our general purpose. Kill my casting right now. And if we stop it, we will miss the ability to despawn, so we always need to have this in our stop casting method. And when we add the ability for NPCs to cast, we'll switch that to our character's equipment manager, because we'll be putting equipment managers on NPCs as well, allowing them to do things like equip their weapons rather than leave them hanging on their back just punching people. Okay, so if we look at our mining ability now, we should be able to add our axe. Okay, those were like runtime errors, I guess. Okay, so let me just go into, whoops, no, it's the logging ability. What's going on here? Okay, perfect. So our holdable object name is the logging axe. And this is where I have an animation for this. AnyRPG. Do I have logging here? No, I don't. Okay. One-handed. It's one of these one-handed ones, I think. Sideways attack hit. Perfect. Okay. This sideways attack hit, basically, these were these mummies that I was talking about. So the animation that we're going to be using from now on for this, actually, you know what? We need to make some modifications here. So on this mummy, we have this sideways attack hit, and it's like this, and this looks good. But the problem is that we actually want this cast to last for like 3 seconds. And let's see, this guy, this isn't even like a second long. It's like 23, 24 frames, 23 frames. Okay. So what we want to do basically is we want to take this, this sideways attack hit here, and we pretty much need to duplicate this. We're gonna rename this, and we're gonna call this logging chop. And the reason that we're making another one for this, let's see, this 634 to 658. So our logging chop will be the same. It will be it's interesting. Okay, 634 to 658. Yeah, okay. 634 to 658. Okay, perfect. And we're just going to loop time here. And that should theoretically allow us to continue chopping the entire time. So now, let's see, what I want to do is basically, I want this thing to be like 3 seconds long. And we need a sound effect as well, I think. So we'll go back to the logging ability. And I don't think I actually even have the ability to play sound effects. I don't. Okay, so it looks like I think I'm going to need actually to add a sound effect to this as well, because we have. Let me see here. Do I have the chopping sound here? Yeah, there we go. So this right here. I don't know if you can hear that. Let me just check the sound here. Yeah. Okay, good. So that effect right there that we got from one of those free sets, which I linked earlier, is basically what I want to happen while this guy's chopping. So I think what we should do here, logging, because if you look at like the effects, for example, effects have an on-hit audio clip, but abilities do not have a casting audio clip, it looks like. None, no audio clip. Okay, so what we actually want to do is we want to add an audio clip to these abilities as well. So let's do that right now. So this I think we're just going to put this right down in base ability as well, because it kind of deserves to be there. And we can get the code for that from ability effect. And somewhere in here we have an audio clip. So we're going to put that into, where's base ability here? In a base ability. So we've got an animation clip, and we've also got an audio clip, and we're not going to call that on hit audio clip. We're just going to call that, how about casting audio clip? And sure, let's make it available through a property as well. Okay, good. So then essentially if we go into ability effect here and we just look at where this thing is actually cast, we're just going to find all references right here if on hit audio clip isn't null. So that's basically where the ability effect is performing the hit. So what we want to do here is we want to actually go into the character ability manager, and we want to, this is the casting effect. So this should really go at the beginning of that casting routine. So let's just find our casting routine in here. Right here, okay. So basically, this is pretty much the spot we want to do that at the exact same time that we spawn that prefab. So if casting audio clip does not equal null, no, we want, right, we're going to have to add this to iAbility as well. So iAbility gets audio clip my casting audio clip. Okay, and then we should be able to refer to it. There. And we're going to attempt to play that audio clip. All right. And I don't have like the ability programmed into the engine to like stop audio clips when something stops. To do that, I actually need to add like a proper audio cue so that I'm not accidentally stopping the wrong audio. So for now, we're just telling this thing basically, if you look at this play effect code here, it's just basically play one shot, so that we can have multiple effects at the same time. I can't stop it yet though, so to get around that, so that we're not like making this crazy chopping sound when we're still not chopping anymore, what we're actually going to do here is adjust this thing to the length of the chop sound. So if we look at this chopping sound here, this is 5.765 seconds. So yeah, 5.7, good enough. So what we'll do here is we will make the logging ability. The casting time on this is now going to be 5.7 seconds. And the casting audio clip is going to be AnyRPG chopping wood. The casting animation is going to be AnyRPG oh, interesting. Do I? Okay, well, we have 1H logging chop. I think that's the one that I just made right now. Okay, so this looks good. Let's go see if it works, because we should have all of the code that we need in place now. Cross our fingers, see if we can get this to go. Okay, so we're going to need to just turn up the sound a little bit. I'll turn down the ambient. That should be okay. It should be good enough that we can hear it anyway. Okay, cool. So 1, 2, 3, time to test. Okay, we didn't get the prefab. Oh, we did. It's neat. The prefab is hanging out on our transform down there. So that's cool. It means we're like partially there. So let's see if we can figure out what happened and why it didn't go where it was supposed to. So the logging axe, oh yeah, also that animation. My character in that animation was doing some funny things, and I really need, I think, to bake some stuff into here. So we go to one-handed logging chop here. I need to bake the character's rotation based off the original, and I'm just going to use IK here and see if that looks any better. Okay, we'll try that, and I think that should keep him basically standing still while he does this. And then let's just go back through everything we created here. Apply, yeah, sure. So here's our logging axe. Our logging axe has a target bone of right hand, so that's fine. We've got these rotations and positions and such, so we know that it spawned. We got the ability effect to play, which was pretty cool. But what we need here is to figure out why it went to the wrong place. So if we go to spawn ability object, let's see here. Yeah, that's the problem. My sheath target bone, of course. That would do it. Okay. Interesting that it actually even found. Okay, well, I suppose what happens maybe is it must spawn the thing on the base transform if it can't find that. But they're not like documenting that on their website, so I really can't confirm exactly what it is supposed to or not supposed to do. So we find the target bone, we put the prefab on. We forgot to set the reference. That's what happened. Okay. Let's make sure we do that. So ability, what do we call this thing again? Ability object. Okay, sure. So basically ability object equals new equipment prefab. Or, we don't even have to do that. We can just straight up assign that. Oh, search object. Oh, that's why. That would make a difference. We're searching him. Okay. Let's try that and see if that works. Okay, so we are going to walk up to the tree and we're going to start whacking it. Oh yeah, oh, we got an axe. Oh, and the sound lines up perfectly almost. Oh, that is so rad. Okay. I am massively happy with that. You know what else we need to do? Mining. So mining. Here's a mining node right here. Okay, cool. Let's save this here. And basically, like, we can do the same thing for the mining pickaxe. So we're gonna duplicate that, and let's try this out. Mining pickaxe. and then mining pickaxe, and this is going to be the AnyRPG AnyRPG pickaxe 01. Yeah, looks good. Okay, I'm actually, honestly, I'm just going to keep these because if these two items are anything even remotely similar, they actually will have the same rotation and stuff because they're made by the same author. So theoretically, those values will actually be good for the mining pickaxe. So what we need to do now, basically, is we'll just go, I need a mining, actually, in those mummies, we actually have an AnyRPG overhead 2x. Let me just take a look at this. Boom. Okay, perfect. So that is like totally what we expect a mining animation to be like. And that's also coming from the mummies, and that's just actually from their like regular axe hit. It's not intended to be a pickaxe at all, but I am like more than happy with it being a pickaxe. So we're going to loop the time, and once again we're going to just bake the rotation. Why don't we bake the position as well? Yeah, good enough. Doesn't need to be perfect, just needs to be better than before, because that's the great thing about iterations. We're just looking for minor improvements, and enough minor improvements add up and you have something pretty awesome. So that is pretty good. So now I just need to basically see, I have a chopping sound, right? What did I call it? Oh man, now I gotta try to find my chopping sound here, if I can even find it. It's a sword hit. There. Yeah, that's the sound. Okay, now I think what we'll do, this sound is like exactly 1 second long. Unless, let's see. I could add like a hit to the animation, and I could like send back the character animation event receiver, and then I could basically like play the sound of the current casting ability. I think for now, I don't really want to get into doing too many more modifications to the engine in this system though. So I think what's going to happen is our mining animation is going to be 1 second long, and it's just going to sort of be a single clink. So I'm just going to go into this folder here, and I'm going to rename this, well, I'm going to duplicate it, and then I'm going to rename this to something like AnyRPG mining sound effect. And then we can go into the mining ability here, and the holdable object name is going to be the mining pickaxe, and the casting audio clip is going to be the mining clink, and the casting animation clip is going to be the overhead two-handed axe. Yeah, that looks good. And we're still going to leave the casting time at like 1. Let me just check this two-handed axe animation and see how long it takes. Clink, clink. It's like a little over a second. Yeah, good enough. Okay. It's going to clink a little bit early, but we can fix that another time. Sort of like the first iteration of our fishing being literally us just jumping into the water. And talking about fishing, we actually kind of need to deal with the bamboo pole after this as well. So mining now has everything it needs. Let's test it out and see what it looks like. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, mine. Oh yeah! Like I said, sound effects a little early, but we got a mining axe in our hand when we do that now. Oh, that is so rad. Okay, cool. I am more than happy with that. So let's this whole thing started because we wanted a bamboo fishing rod in our hands while we were fishing, and we wanted some cool fishing animations. So we are going to go and we are now going to go do the fishing stuff we actually started like this entire episode with to begin with. So we're going to learn fishing. We're just going to save this right now. And now really the only thing we need to do, I'm not going to do any fishing sound effects. I don't have any for this episode. But, okay, so we have the logging axe here and the other thing too. So let's take that, and this is going to be our fishing pole. So we now have a fishing pole, and that corresponds to our AnyRPG fishing rod. And what I want to do basically is I want to go in and look at the mouse who's carrying this thing, fish a lot. Because basically I think we can pretty much just use the values from the fishing rod in this guy's model. So we will go and add a tab for another inspector. And we're just going to look for the fishing rod right there. And perfect. We're just going to grab all these values because basically this fishing rod is in the mouse's hand. And so this is a really good starting point for where we want the fishing rod in our hand. I'm actually okay with like the size and everything in his hand. Physical prefab, physical position, physical rotation. And scale looks good. Okay, cool. So I think that'll be okay. We have our fishing pole. And then we also have a fishing animation from that Carnegie Mellon huge mocap library. So basically all we need to do is, this is the animation right here, fishing and reeling. That one kind of sucks. Let me just check. He just like stands around and does nothing for a while. Let's see, fishing and reeling 2. Okay, good. I like that one. So I just need to shorten it up a little bit because it is too long. So we're going to go into here, unlock this inspector, and we're just going to start it like a little further, like right here. Perfect. that's kind of where he starts the fishing thing. And let's just go to the back here, and he's gonna like catch the fish and then put the rod down, and we're good right there. Okay, so now this animation is 4 seconds and 17 frames, which is basically just like about 4.3, maybe 4.6. We'll call it 4.5 seconds. So if we go into the fishing ability here, now we can set the holdable object name to fishing pole and the casting animation clip to fishing and reeling 2, setting the casting time to 4.5 seconds, and that should be all that's needed now. So save this project. And let's see what happens when we go fishing. See if anything happens. Okay. So we're going to go over here by the fish. For now, we're not implementing like fishing bobbers or anything. Ah, yeah. Oh, yeah, we're reeling in the rod. Okay, that was cool. It's not like exactly where I want it. In fact, that's like totally terrible. Okay, let's fix that. There. We are definitely going to have to fix that. So let's find our fishing pole. And let's take a look in our scene and just sort of fix that a little bit. So basically, we need to rotate this. Wow, this looks really bad. Okay, I'm actually just gonna like reset this rotation entirely. And the position. I guess the mice have a lot different bone structure, because that was basically copied off of the mouse's bone structure. So we can move the rod up here, and then like a little bit this way, sort of looking down on it from above there. We kind of want it like in the center of his hand, right there. And then basically we want to rotate this thing. So we'll hit the rotate key, and I want to basically rotate it like, no, that's, oops, the wrong one. See if I can grab the rotation that I want here. There we go, that's better. Okay. So there. And now he's got that sort of reel right there. We're going to want to move this a little bit more up, and maybe a little bit more sort of that way. Okay, let's look at that. So now He's kind of got it in his hands. His thumb's getting in the way a little bit here. But let's take a look and let's just see if it looks like he is properly reeling the thing or not. But first, you know what I'm going to do actually, even more importantly, is I'm going to save those positions, because as soon as this thing despawns, all that trouble that I just went to is going to reset. So we actually need another console here, inspector again, and I need to go find the fishing pole. Okay, we're just going to lock that one, and then we're going to find the fishing pole in the scene. Okay, good. So we'll set these positions now. And then we'll set the rotations. Okay, good. That is a lot better. Right, can't save in game. Okay, pop out. Good. Let's jump out of here and just try that out now. Okay, and we'll run back over here to our fish, and we'll click on it, and we get the rod, we cast, we reel it in. That is not bad. I think maybe I want to rotate it like just slightly forward, because he's still kind of hitting himself in the head with it. But that initial cast looks like really good. Yeah, all I got to do is rotate that forward just slightly. Okay. We'll wait, we'll pause it, and we'll just check that last rotation, and we'll get it to look good while he's reeling. Okay, perfect. So now he's reeling. Let's just go look at the fishing rod where it is right now, and we just want to go into the scene here, and we want to rotate this thing a little bit, like kind of more up like that, and then move it. So no, we're going to move it. Oh man, I need to change that to like global coordinate system, I think. No, that's still no good. No, maybe I do need to change it back to the local coordinate system. Oh wow, I can't seem to get that to line up properly. Okay. Okay, let's see where this thing is. Still too far back, basically. Like, when he's reeling this thing, it should be rotated forward like this way. But not quite so bad. Actually, that's not bad. Let's just move that a little bit. It's no longer hitting him in the head. If you look, it kind of looks like he's carrying it. I mean, I could move it back like into sort of that spot where his thumb is right now. Actually, might as well do that. Yeah, why not? Okay, so we'll just move it like slightly that way, right back to where his thumb is. And hopefully that's high enough up that he's not going to hit himself in the head with it. Still almost looks like he will. Okay, let's we need to take these values and we need to put them back in this locked inspector window. Okay, unpause. Yeah, that's a little better, I think. Okay, we'll save that and see how that works out. Okay, let's jump into the water here. We'll go over to our fish. I'm just going to save this because if we need to do this again, it's better to just start in the water. Okay, awesome. And fish, over the shoulder, throw, back and reel, kind of like bonking ourselves in the head a little bit there. But to be honest, I think I'm almost okay with that. Just like you know what? I'm good with that. That's good enough for now. I mean, I could sit there and tweak this thing and rotate it all day, but we have succeeded. We can chop trees with an axe. We can mine stuff with a pickaxe, and we can fish with a fishing rod with even kind of a cool little fishing animation there. Awesome. So I think actually that's pretty good for this episode. At some point, what I'm going to need to do is change the animations now for all of the weapons because basically, because we can have sheathed weapons, we don't need to have like our in combat holding weapons stance when we're out of combat. And then also, like I still haven't added the potion prefabs and stuff. So I think I'll add the potion prefabs later, but this video is getting a little bit long. And realistically, after adding these other things, you can see how easy it would be to just add a scriptable object now for a holdable object for the potion and just have that as the ability casting prefab for this. So I think we're actually good, and I think we can publish this now as version 0.5 alpha. So remembering that we're always going to be making nice series of commits here, we can go into our Unity project. And make a nice commit message, and this is going to be basically added ability object let's see, ability object scriptable objects for casting. Yeah, good enough. And not forgetting to upgrade our game version here. This will be released as AnyRPG version 0.5 alpha, and I'll be uploading that shortly, basically as soon as my build completes. So we'll make a new releases directory here, and this is going to be AnyRPG alpha 0.5a. And we'll go into the build directory, and this is AnyRPG alpha 0.5a. And this is the folder we'll be building into. Perfect. Okay, that looks good. Just as a reminder, if you like this type of content and you want to see more of it in the future, or even if you'd like to see like a lot more of a focused tutorial series where I just come through with all this stuff ready and explain how it works so you don't have to watch the long form process of it being done, then subscribe to the Cohesion channel and leave some comments telling me what you'd like to see, or give the video a thumbs up if you like what you're already seeing. Thanks again, and I will see you guys next time.